Good to be back at Westside once again. I see many people that I've known for years. Howard and Myrtle, Brenda, Walt and Linda. We met in Oklahoma City long time ago. About every other year, I used to go through an exercise that I call reconstructing my Credo. That is, sitting down and writing out my own beliefs, both religious and secular. I've also observed that congregations are very interested in what their ministers claim to believe. That is, what do they really believe? I've been retired for almost 10 years now. So I decided that it's about time that I reconstructed my Credo once again, the result of which are the topics of this morning's reflection. I often learn many important things from this Credo exercise, not the least of which is that my beliefs change through time, which has made me very humble towards what others believe. What I believed as an adolescent is definitely not what I believed in middle age. And what I believed in middle age is not what I believe now in the late Holocene. Another thing this exercise accomplishes is that it makes my priorities and goals based on my beliefs clear and focused. It removes a lot of what I call the underbrush so that I can see deeper and crisper into the future. This morning I will address a few of those perennial questions that always seem to haunt religious discussions. First, I will give you my thoughts on some of the traditional religious questions: God, the Bible, and Jesus. Then some semi-religious questions. What exactly is religion? How is spirituality related to religion? And what is the future of religious belief? That's a lot to cover in a single reflection. So let me get started. God. The way I understand the word God is not as an entity at all, and certainly not as a person-like entity. The word becomes most useful for me when used as an explanation for the origin of existence itself. Yet for me, God is not so much the cause of it all, but rather the condition that brought it all about. Such a view is rather deist, I know. It is the condition that made existence likely, but then quickly faded into insignificance afterwards. God is, for most people, a product of their belief system. They literally bring God into existence by their believing that God is real. Children do that all the time. By believing in Santa Claus, they make Santa Claus literally real to themselves. I remember when my parents told me there was no Santa Claus. I was in the second grade, I think. I tried to argue them out of believing there was no Santa Claus. I just knew Santa Claus was real. What God believers construct subjectively is really a projection of their own values, personified and often anthropomorphized as a person like themselves. That is, by doing what they believe God's will is, they are basically doing what they believe they should be doing, while giving the responsibility for those actions to their imaginary God. They are relieving themselves of any responsibility that act may encumber upon them personally. I find that the word God has become less and less used and useful in my life. But life is still good, even without God. Actually, better. For without life after death, which God makes possible, every moment that I now have is all the more precious. I have taken to calling myself an agnostic, for that is what I am, one who doesn't ultimately know. But if I were asked to vote, I would definitely vote with the atheist, which makes me practically an atheist, I suppose, or at least a non-theist. Some say an anti-theist. The Bible. When I was born in 1938, I suspect almost 99% of the people in the United States would have claimed a belief in God. According to polls, by the 1960s, only around 94% would have made such a claim. And in 2008, it went down to 84%. And today, it wouldn't surprise me if the number of people who profess such a belief would be down to around 80% of the population. And the trend seems to be continuing to decline. I recently saw an article that suggested that if the trends continue at their present rate, by 2030, there will be more non-believers than believers in this country. And as if to emphasize that point, a friend recently sent me a factoid that said the number of church foreclosures in this country has recently skyrocketed and jumped tenfold, mainly due to declining attendance. Now, it's natural to ask, what's going on here? Why are so many people losing their faith? The reason I believe is twofold. The first reason is the growing relevance of science. People are gradually coming to acknowledge that science really does explain the world better than the Bible does. Astrophysics, neuroscience, evolution, but mainly the success of the medical professions have all accumulated to provide a consistent and coherent picture of reality, a picture that the tri-level world of the Bible cannot compete with. The second reason is because today's scholarly investigations of the Bible, along with archaeological discoveries that made the Bible appear more of what it is, a propaganda device of anything but historical. In a recent Time magazine, an article about a new version of what heaven might be. What I think it was really saying is that the first century idea of life, death, and the possibility of life after death just doesn't work anymore. Theologians in various churches are struggling to reframe the idea of heaven to fit our 21st century understanding of the world we live in. And as it is with heaven, so it is with many other religious words and ideas. All in all, the Bible just isn't believable anymore in the way it once was. And when things become items for doubt, everything is doubtful. Yet not backed up by some kind of evidence, of which there very little is. Carl Sagan once said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And today, the resurrection, for example, would definitely fall into that category. Even those who take the Bible literally are gradually beginning to understand that this book is no more reliable than any other book. It is a book about a Hebrew God and his son, just as Egyptian, Greek, and Roman tales are stories about their gods and goddesses. The consequence of that, the Bible is mostly has lost its reliability, including belief in life after death. And without that, what does the Christian message have to offer? Jesus. When it comes to Jesus, there's a whole plethora of theories that are available to explain who Jesus was. For example, I first became interested in who Jesus might be in the 1960s when I read Hugh Schofield's book, The Passover Plot. I'm sure many of you have read that book, which suggests that Jesus faked his own death by drinking some drug while he hung on the cross. The drug was one that simulated death. As a consequence, Jesus was more resuscitated than resurrected. A post-crucifixion living Jesus suggests many new possibilities. Perhaps Paul on his journey to Damascus didn't encounter a vision of Jesus so much as he encountered Jesus. And the bones of the person found that was set aside as if that person was somehow special seemed to have been the right age for Jesus himself. Or, as is usually suggested, possibly one of the disciples of Jesus. One person who has done considerable research on the historicity of Jesus is Earl Doherty. Doherty's research reported in his book, Neither God Nor Man, led him to conclude that there never was a person named Jesus. John Dominic Crossan suggests that the man Jesus likely died on the cross and his body was disposed of the way the Romans disposed of all criminals' bodies, tossed in a common grave where it was likely eaten by dogs. John Shelley Spong and Robert Price both claim that there probably was a man named Jesus, although the Christ myth was a later add-on. Spong and Price are about as far apart theologically as two can get. Yet while Spong acknowledges being inspired by the Christ myth, for Price, that same myth is just that, a myth. Not any better and not any worse than any other Egyptian, Greek, or Roman myth. A popular yet leading authority on Jesus and the New Testament was Bart Ehrman. In a recent book entitled Did Jesus Exist?, he writes, Jesus knew nothing of our world. He was not a capitalist. He had never heard of democracy. He had nothing to do with going to church on Sunday. He knew nothing of Social Security, food stamps, welfare, unemployment numbers, or immigration. He had no views of tax reform, health care, or the welfare state. He expressed no opinions on ethical issues that plague us today: abortion and reproductive rights, gay marriage, euthanasia, or bombing Iraq. His world was not ours, his concerns were not our concerns, and most striking of all, his beliefs were not our beliefs. Jesus was a supernaturalist. He believed in the devil and demons in this world. He knew little about the workings of the Roman Empire. He may have considered all governments evil unless it was a theocracy run by God himself. Jesus thought that God would intervene and destroy the forces of evil. This would not come from human efforts, but when it was going to happen, and happen soon. Mythicists, that is, those who believe that Jesus is a myth, a story that has no historical basis, believe that Christianity has done and continues to do more harm than good in the world. They see the incredible damage religion has done to human lives, from the sponsorship of slavery to the refusal to grant women reproductive rights to the denial of the possibility of gay love and marriage. They see political power that the religious right yields, from imposing religious beliefs in our schools to electing only those who support certain religious agendas. However, says Reverend, Jesus did exist, whether we like it or not. And most recently, the filmmaker, Simcha Jacobisi, an amateur archaeologist and an Israeli-born Canadian, claims to have found the family tomb of Jesus with several ossuaries, that's bone boxes, within which the dead bones are collected after about a year after their flesh has decayed. One of which was Jesus's, within which were his bones. Interestingly, the tomb also contains the ossuary of Mariana, Mary Magdalene, Jesus' wife, and the ossuary of a child named Judah, the son of Jesus. Many Christian historians are claiming that there is zero chance that this family tomb is genuinely that of the Jesus family. As far as I am concerned, it does not surprise me that Christian scholars are denying that this ossuary and these bones belong to Jesus, for the claim that they do would require a whole new interpretation of the Gospels, or worse, to deny their historicity altogether. So what to do about Jesus? There is just not enough trustworthy information, I think, to have a good understanding of who or what Jesus was. Theories abound. I accept that Jesus was a real person and he died probably unjustly executed by the Romans. Beyond that, it's all speculation. What is religion? Religion is a human attempt to preserve beliefs. The major tool to accomplish this is the institution. In Christianity, using the institution of the church, the Christian church seeks to preserve and perpetuate itself. But every religion from Buddha to Shinto to Jain has some form of institutional structure. Ironically, the very act of trying to preserve beliefs is a catch-22 situation, for there are times the church has to do things that are very non-religious in order to continue to be religious. I recall a movie where some pope was leading an army warring against some community so that they could continue loving their enemy. Is that ironic or what? Today, people are turning away from the church and towards various kinds of spiritual practices in record numbers. The irony is, in order to maintain those spiritual practices, new forms of institutions are being born. I do not believe that the church will go away anytime soon. However, it may go through some new kind of reformation in which it may lose its identity but remain vital to those who need its organizational structure. One new kind of church that is emerging is, I think, exciting. It exists only in London at the present. It's called the School of Life. It is very secular. There is no mention of God, Jesus, or any of the usual religious stuff. Its sermons are lectured by guest speakers on physics, history, neuroscience, and kinky sex, and all kinds of other interesting topics. Its hymns are popular, though inspirational music. It offers weekly meals and fellowship for community and psychotherapy sessions instead of counseling and prayer. And a lot of self-help books. You can look it up on the web at www.theschooloflife. Don't forget the School of Life. This, I suspect, may be one of the new directions in which the institutional church will move in the future. I certainly hope so. How is spirituality related to religion? Essentially, it's not. And that's why today, more people are opting to call themselves spiritual but not religious. Spirituality is, at its core, a deep and genuine need for people to feel something, to feel a connection with the world, to feel in touch with something greater than themselves, to feel safe at home in an uncertain world, to feel love, to feel oneself at the heart of the nexus of reality. I define spirituality as feelingfulness. We often say that experience is the essence of religion, but that is just a little mistaken, I think. Experience causes feelings, sure, but it is those feelings that are the essence of what we wish to have in our lives. It is feelings that are the essence of spirituality, not religion. Yet experience is the doorway into being a feelingful person. So experience is important, but it is the feelings that they cause that is the spiritual goal. But feelings are only a part of what a human being is. We are also cognitive, thinking beings. I believe we live on a razor's edge between thinking and feeling. Trying to be and remain balanced is not easy. When we become imbalanced on one side or the other, we crave the other side. If we find ourselves in an ordered, rational world, we crave those feelings that we call spiritual. But when we become aware that we are too much into mushy sensations, we crave logical, thoughtful, rational explanations. The truth is, we need both the rational and the spiritual. What is the future of religion? I don't know, really. But it's the statistics that I quoted at the beginning continue as they are, religion appears to be on an accelerating downward trend. Another trend that complicates a clear view of the future is that we are becoming a nation of loners. The number of single apartment dwellers has skyrocketed. Flying solo has become the norm, not the exception. What will this do to religious beliefs? I don't know, but I don't feel good about this new trend. We need one another, and if religions can provide any valued function at all, it is my sincere hope that they will become sources of community for those single individuals who need them. I sincerely hope that churches can change their spots, that they can begin to become places where single individuals can find community while offering help in balancing the rational and spiritual selves. Churches similar to the School of Life that has become an overnight sensation in London have great promise. If so, the churches can become meaningful institutions in the years ahead, instead of being myth protectors as they are now. Okay, that's my credo. That's some of what I believe about God, the Bible, Jesus, religion, spirituality, and the future. But my beliefs have never been the purpose of this reflection. Yours are. I gave you what I believe so that I can ask you to give me what you believe. I want to ask you to go home this afternoon or sometime in the coming week and write out your credo. It doesn't have to be on the same topics that I use, but it does need to be about what you believe, about what you deep down in your heart of hearts believe. I'm asking you to join me in this exercise, to join in constructing your own credo, because Unitarian Universalism is, among other things, nothing if it is not about nurturing your life. If I can get you to write down what you believe now, today, and put it in an envelope, I put that envelope in a desk drawer, you might pull it out in 5 years or 10 years and reread it. I assure you, you will be surprised at what you wrote in 2012. Such an understanding is a kind of growth. Your children or a friend may open that drawer after you're gone and read your credo, and that will, I promise you, be a moving experience, a real gift for them. I tell people when I ask them to write out their credo, they can send a copy to me if they would like. I promise I will read every credo sent me. I might comment on one or more of your beliefs here or there, but not as a teacher. This is not a test, but as a fellow searcher, working alongside of you to understand what it's all about. You certainly do not need to send to me anything. I will be surprised if I get more than 2 credos. But you certainly may send me a copy if you would like. One last instruction. Please do not forget to date your credo. You are beginning to do what Unitarian Universalism exists to help you to do. This is one way that we fill one of our principles and purposes, by encouraging spiritual growth in our congregations. Good luck. Our closing hymn is number 121, We'll Build a Lamp. Let us stand and sing together the first 3 verses.